So we here on GG Sports Podcast are not of the thinking that Kevin O'Connell needs to be fired after the 2023 season. But going into next year, I think next year is going to be really telling. You know, as they say, as it comes with quarterbacks, right? That third year is really when you start to see them take that next step. That's to
Mhm.
me, that's kind of the path I see Kevin O'Connell on as well, right? So first season he had the 13-4 start. The culture was great. Like after the Zimmer era, we kind of needed a new message and a new face of the team. We got that in Kevin O'Connell. We really, hung in there, close games, 11-0 and one score games, and I really thought we saw his culture affecting how the team looked on the field. Like the team was excited to be out there. They looked pretty well prepared to start games. I mean, obviously there was like the mid-game dip that we took, but for the most part, we came out firing to start the games, and at the very end, came up when we needed to. And then, of course, you had 2023 season of turnovers, injuries, all that type of stuff. So I think he's really seen the lows. And
Right.
and the main complaint with Kevin O'Connell is the inability to cater the offense to whatever quarterback ends up being in there, as well as some of the play calling issues, which you and I have both highlighted multiple times throughout this season. But overall, I do think when it comes to head coach, Kevin O'Connell has what it takes. The offensive play caller thing, you can really question. I mean, and I still think that's up for debate.
Mhm.
When it comes to Kevin O'Connell in 2024, I mean, this is when he's got to really put it all together.
Yeah. First off, everybody who's watching, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Appreciate it big time. Let me start with the good. Um, so with Kevin O'Connell is you do get good leadership. Like so far, you're right. You're correct with, the play calling and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, like I think that's one thing we do like about him big time is just his leadership in general and his relationship with the players on these teams. It seems like everybody really does like him as the leader, and it does. I mean, he's a guy that just naturally everybody's gonna kind of stand behind him and stand up for him, and that's a really important thing to have in the NFL or any sports in general. And he does have that. Obviously, I mean, you need more than that, of course. And that's why, like, with this season, I know the play calling has been questionable, and I think that is very fair. I think we've seen up and down, definitely an up and down season from him in that standpoint. He has looked good in certain areas, though. I do want to say, and then also actually, and then you mentioned the whole thing with the quarterbacks, and not being able to really use them the way they need to be if they're a lot different. It was kind of like once kind of using them like how you would use Kirk Cousins. That's kind of how he did it. Even though in the beginning it was like once he played Dobbs, it felt like, oh man, he can do whatever. He can change things up for every quarterback because Dobbs came in running, and then as each week progressed with Dobbs, it was obvious he was trying to fit him what was that called, like a square peg in a circle,
Round hole, yeah.
Ronald, whatever, circle, one of those ones, whatever. Anyways, that's what I felt like he was trying to do instead of just trying to play to Dobbs' strength, which I do think is somewhat concerning because moving on to if we were to draft a quarterback in this year's draft, especially, assuming Caleb Williams is gone, because I think Caleb Williams, I'm sure he'd be able to kind of fit in our system, but then also with Drake May as well, I think he would be a good quarterback for KOC. I think those both would be, but then you look at those guys are probably 1 and 2, and then you look at a guy like Jaden Daniels, who's going to be in the top 10, probably in the third best quarterback, and maybe a guy we might have a chance with, but then you have to be somewhat concerned. Like this guy, obviously he can pass and everything, but he is definitely a running type of quarterback. So if you do get a guy like that is he going to even be able to fit with KOC, or is KOC going to be able to learn to kind of, I guess, change things up for
Right.
kind of quarterback in the future?
And I do think with a full offseason, knowing that is going to be your guy, I really do think he could do it. And even if he does sit behind a pocket, if a guy like that would sit behind a pocket passer quarterback, at least he could learn from a professional about pocket passing in the NFL and incorporate that into his game. Then obviously when he takes over fully, then you can kind of put the game plan around him. But I kind of want to go back to the issue with Jaren Hall against the Green Bay Packers last night, to which, again, like, and that was the main argument. It's like, yes, he's a rookie. You pulled him after halftime. He did make some mistakes early on, but again, like you said, he was trying to kind of fit him into that Kirk Cousins offense. Like there has to, like, come on,
With Jaron Hall, you're talking about
yeah, with Jaron
specifically?
Hall, with an offense, with being an offensive play caller, you have to be able to have some just low level base plays that a rookie quarterback can come in and execute. Just, I mean, we saw it right away. He let him roll out, have a couple. He had a couple choices, decided to take off, and run it himself. But
Mhm.
you have to, like, I get it. You don't need to devise a whole game plan around Jaron Hall's skill set, but you have to be able to have just some low level, quick one read,
Right,
two
right,
read,
right,
get rid of
right,
the
right.
ball type of plays, and we just didn't see enough of that. It
At
was
all,
way too
really.
much drop back. The offensive line could not hold up. It just he looked a little bit slow going through his progressions. But yes, at the end of the
Right.
day, that does come down to the head coach. And if this is the guy that we do in fact want to sculpt our next quarterback, do we trust him to do that at this point? And at this point, I mean, it's questionable. It's 100% questionable. So I don't think Kevin O'Connell is going to go into this offseason like with having the feeling of you're coaching for your job next year. But I do think there are just a couple little things that we need to see him get better at going forward. And this really does come down to the quarterback position in general. But I mean, but this game, you knew that you were in control of your destiny again. And you knew all you had to do was win these next two games. You were at home, big game
Mhm.
against the Green Bay Packers, and just nobody looked like they wanted to be out there, offense or defense. Like they were the Packers defense jumped all over us from the start. Again, just
On
Jaron Hall
offense.
the offense was almost too Kirk Cousins like, and it wasn't simple. It wasn't simplified enough for a rookie quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback who had been splitting snaps all week. So
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just, again, the majority of what Kevin O'Connell does, I like, but just some of his game planning things and just some of his how he's managed the quarterback position, it's up for debate. And yes, the injuries, we've talked about that, right? The injuries are a big thing, but a lot of other teams are dealing with injuries as well, and it's different as you look around. Like I hear a lot of people compare this to Cleveland Browns. Like Joe Flacco is a former Super Bowl champion, right? And that defense is top 2 in the league. It's part of the reason why Case Keenum, when he played for us, why he was so good that year, right?
Mhm.
He was bailed out by his receivers, and he had an amazing defense behind him. So it's like I don't really look at the Cleveland Browns, but there are other teams like the Colts with Gardner Minshew who are in contention, right? So it's the injury thing. It's an excuse to an extent, but you just feel like there's too many just little things that we even saw it with Kirk Cousins early on in the season, where it's just some of the play calling wasn't exactly what we wanted it to be. So I mean, as much as I love the overall of what Kevin O'Connell does, to be a successful head coach in this league, especially if you want to be the offensive play caller, it's like we need to see some growth. So
Mhm.
I don't he's in no danger of being fired this offseason, but I mean next season they need. I mean I think we're at a point where we need to see some improvements. Year 3 is going to be huge.
And yeah, I think it is fair to say like it's going to be a big deal for him in year 3, and maybe, and I think it's probably fair at this point, but it's also not that fair because at the end of the day, I mean, Kevin O'Connell is still what is he as a head coach? 20
20
and
and 13 or something like
20
that, I
and
think.
13 or something. He's still a winning head coach in the NFL in his first 2 years, especially after the year, him coming in and kind of getting 13 wins after a bad year, down year from the last year of Mike Zimmer. It does say a lot about him in general. And one thing for sure is like, yes, I don't think, and back to like the Jaron Hall thing, like you're 100% right. It is on him. It's definitely on him that there wasn't enough quick passes. Like I don't think you bring a rookie in. I don't blame him at all. I was team play Jaron Hall. Anybody who's out there saying like, hey, they should have just rolled
Right.
with Nick Mullins after seeing him throw 6 interceptions with 2 losses, like who cares? Who cares what you do from there? Nick Mullins isn't the guy. Dobbs isn't the guy. And from this game, we're seeing that Jaron Hall is probably not the guy. And maybe he turns into a solid quarterback someday, but it wasn't what we saw from him, even though it was a short amount of time. It was like, you're seeing this. Hopefully he's a backup quarterback or whatever. And I think he could be a good backup quarterback, but you're not sitting here thinking that he's going to be your starter anytime soon or anything like that or whatever. But Kevin O'Connell didn't put him in the best chance to succeed, and it is mostly because he wasn't. And he hasn't been. Kevin O'Connell doesn't do this at all. And as far as play calling goes, I think this is something he needs to learn to make a change going forward and hopefully into next season. And it is just adding some more slants, some more short throws, not screens, not so much screens and
Right.
stuff, but like literally short throws. So we don't have to worry about the pass rush so much. And obviously I mean, if you take notes to what happened in this game and the reason why we lost, a lot of it came down early in the game. Jordan Love and the Packers were throwing short all over us because we were bringing, because that's what we do. We either bring the pass rush or we bring everybody back. So I think teams are starting to figure out Brian Flores and that they need to eat up these little short throws on us, and it kind of opens up the game against that kind of defense. And this is something that other defenses are starting to do against our inexperienced quarterbacks, and we're not doing, and we continue to either try to throw intermediate to deeper throws or whatever, or run the ball, whatever, but we're not really doing any of these short throws. And for Jaren Hall, you need to get him comfortable. You need him to get into a rhythm and complete some passes here and not get sacked almost three times in a row that were just straight pass rushes up the middle. And it's obvious that those passes were, you were looking for like an intermediate throw at least, and there wasn't like any sort of check down or dump off or anything for him. So I do think 100% like that is a good point. But that being said, back to the positives is at the end of the day, he after losing Kirk Cousins, you have 3 quarterbacks that are not starters in the NFL.
Right.
And arguably like you don't even really want them to be, I would say, backups for long. Like you've said about Nick Mullins, like, yes, if it's like a 2-game thing, yeah, I think he can do enough. He's probably going to throw some interceptions, but he probably will win you a game. There's a chance he might also lose you a game, but he's a backup quarterback. That's what they do. If your quarterback goes down for the season, I think you probably try to get someone even better than Nick Mullins if you're in contention. I don't think he's a guy that you want to keep playing if you lose your quarterback for the year and you're not, and you are in contention or whatever. So that's just reality of it. And I do think Kevin O'Connell should get some slack for the fact that he's had to deal with this quarterback carousel. And I don't think, even though I don't really like how he did handle the Jaren Hall thing, specifically with the short passes, that's pretty much mostly it with that. But the reality is he just, none of those quarterbacks are that good. It's not on him. I think it's definitely partially on him, but it's not all on him because it's just a quarterback situation.
Right. And I do got to say, I was impressed because with after all the injuries, this team could have quit. Like week 6. Right. And the fact, again, you never want to because I don't even want to say like the whole team quit, but you could tell they were players that were just out there collecting their paychecks at this point. But the fact that he's kept this team like engaged and flying around as much as they had been for as long as they have been after everything that's happened this season, I give him a ton of credit for. Obviously though, in this game, this isn't how you want to see it. Like from the start, it wasn't good. And that's in a game where you just got another breath of life, controlling your own destiny again. And that's how you come out. I can see where the disappointment comes from there. I do understand. Like a lot of people are questioning why even start Jaren Hall if the leash was that short. I do think the fact that we were in control of our destiny did have something to do with that switch to where he knew like, okay, it's just not going well. We've seen Nick Mullins operate this offense before. Right. We'll just toss him out there. He knows what he's doing. He maybe be able to provide us a little bit of something to get us moving here. So I'm not harping on him for the decision to pull Jaren Hall, but it's just, again, it all just does come back to the way that he has tried to hasn't really molded the offense around these inexperienced quarterbacks who haven't had a ton of playing time. So
yeah, and he has been dealing with tons. You lose TJ Hawkinson, Justin Jefferson was gone for most of the time with these quarterbacks. It's fair to say, like, it's any coach would have a tough time with what Kevin O'Connell has dealt with since Kirk Cousins has went down.
Right.
It's just the truth of it. It's not I do think there's situations where Kevin O'Connell could have been better in those, but you have Kirk Cousins for this whole year. Nobody's talking about firing Kevin O'Connell. That's to me, it's crazy that people are talking about it. I think there's no question he's not going to get fired this year for sure. And he's going to have every opportunity next year. Yes, if things go south next year and everything's looking bad, I think it'll be up for debate, I guess. But ultimately, he hasn't been the perfect head coach, but he's been pretty good. And to be honest, again, like, he's just been stuck in a shitty situation.
Right.
And ever since Kirk Cousins went down, like, that's just that's the truth.
But I do think so. Next year, I do think is going to be big for him and Kwesi, because obviously when they were hired, there had to have been a plan. Not re-signing Kirk Cousins last year, there has to be a plan in place. If we come back next year and we don't have at least a quarterback we can build on, and some of the same mistakes we see him making now, he makes next year, then I think the questions are really going to start. At that point, they're fair. But at this point, I really don't think they are. I don't think Kevin O'Connell's seat needs to be hot. I think in 2023. I think in 2024, his job is 100% safe.
Yeah, and the good thing about this one, this was just a trash year. It was unfortunate. Too many injuries, obviously the turnovers, all that kind of stuff. The way we ended against the Packers, obviously was not optimal. I think just like our fans, and you said like it just seems like everybody's heads wasn't in the games. We still had a chance for playoffs, but come on. I mean, even if we made playoffs, we weren't going to go anywhere. And I'm sure that whole, even though you're not supposed to do that, especially as a coach and a leader, keep the players in the game, whatever. But it's just been disappointing. Like, what do? You're scratching, clawing to do whatever you can. And, you know, as a fan, that's kind of how we felt. Like, we bring Jaron Hall in it, and we were hoping for the spark that he maybe could get us, because that's what it was desperately needed. Otherwise, it was just like, we're not going to make playoffs anyways. And if we do, we're just going to get out right away. And, you know, so I do think that it's an unfortunate situation there. But the positive thing, hopefully, is, you know, he had to go through a lot of adversity. The first year, 13 wins, even though there's a lot of comebacks, whatever. You know, I mean, maybe you don't go in the off season like you're just going to go in there, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing at work last year, whatever. This year, I mean, he's going to have to go in the off season and try to grow as a head coach. And I do think you know, it's going to get the opportunity to do that, and hopefully he does come back next season, you know, better in those areas. And I mean, it's another year. He's still a young head coach anyways, still another year of experience regardless. But
For sure.
with some diversity, you know, it'll be interesting to see how he can come back.
Absolutely. But anyway, we on GG Sports Podcast think Kevin O'Connell's job is safe for 2024, but we do need to see some improvements. Let us know your guys' thoughts on Kevin O'Connell down in the comment section, and we'll see you guys next time right here on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.